Hello and welcome to another event in our Tech Talk series. Today's presentation will cover Force.com for Google Apps Engine for Java. As you may know, Salesforce.com is a publicly traded company, and therefore we do need to share the safe harbor statement with you to let you know that any forward-looking statements are just that, forward-looking statements. If you'd like to learn more about this, you can find it on our website under the Investor Relations section. So with that, I'd like to introduce Ron Hess.
Thank you, Sheridan. Hello, my name is Ron Hess, and I'm a developer evangelist here at Salesforce.com. And I have with me today Ryan Marples. And Ryan and I appeared recently at the Google I/O conference where we introduced this new technology. So Ryan, would you just say hello?
Hello, everyone. Looking forward to doing some good demos.
All right, fantastic. So as I say, we did introduce this a couple of months ago at the Google I/O conference, and so if you were able to attend that, you may have had a chance to see some of this presentation there. We're going to review this and hopefully add some new stuff for you. So the agenda today is that we're going to quickly review the Force.com platform. Many of you are familiar with the platform, so this will just be a quick review. And then I'd like to talk about how we are connecting the two clouds, the Google Cloud and the Force.com Cloud. These are both very powerful platforms. I think you'll see that. And I think you'll be excited to see how we're going to connect them. So in order to connect them, we're going to build a bridge. And we'll take that one piece at a time, show you how it's done, and then you'll be able to run your own Java programs, and build and run your Java programs in the cloud and take advantage of both of these fantastic platforms. Then we've got a Hello World, so I wanted to show that, and we've got a product catalog demo that Ryan built, and that's very interesting. A lot of that is built in Java, so you'll be able to see that. We've also shared the source code for all of this that you'll see here today. So that's always the exciting part for me. So I'm going to jump right into the Force.com platform. Now this is a very important slide. We all love this slide here because it really does explain what our platform is all about and what you can do with our platform will become evident here. The foundation of our cloud environment is the real-time infrastructure. The Force.com infrastructure is a secure, global, multi-tenant environment with the ability to scale to millions of users. It's been SAS 70 and ISO 27001 certified, so it's trusted to run your business. You can think of all of this infrastructure as the part of our platform that you get for free when you're building your applications on our platform. The next level up is the Force.com Cloud Platform. The cloud platform contains a variety of the required modules to build a SaaS application very fast. All of these are also included in the platform, and you get to take advantage of them as you need in your applications. These include mobile deployment, real-time websites, real-time analytics, workflow and approvals. And today we are going to show you how programmable cloud logic can build that bridge between the two clouds. On top of the cloud platform is all of the sales, service, and your application, all of the clouds that make up our entire community. So many of you use the Sales Cloud or the Service Cloud today, and many of the ISVs and partners are building their own clouds to work on this platform. Those are the high-level portion of this particular slide. So what is Force.com good for? Well, it's good for building any sort of CRM or non-CRM application. Non-CRM applications like HR or ERP or financial apps, and that's just to name a few. So we think that with all of these features that Force.com is the fast way to build in the cloud. All of these things come included, and we'll be able to take advantage. Your applications will be able to take advantage of this, and you've seen many of our partners take advantage of lots of these features. So this all adds up to tremendous value. So that's just a quick overview of the Force.com cloud and what you'll get when you build with it. Now let's take a look at how Google positions their cloud. And this is the Google Cloud Architecture slide. I got this from my friend at Google, and when we were presenting to the Google audience, he said, well, let's have a similar slide where we can show the Google Cloud Architecture. So from here you can see that Google has designed Google App Engine right into the core of their infrastructure, and it allows connection with other web services. Also, third-party apps built on top of Google App Engine will take advantage of IDE support, the visualization APIs, the Google Web Toolkit, and so on, as well as all the Google apps that we know and love. And those are some very powerful productivity apps, no doubt about it. So, notice the thing I want to point out here is that the actual Google Cloud is built and designed to work with other web services. So along comes our cloud. And now we've seen this slide before, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but our cloud is a similar construction with an infrastructure, a platform, and applications on top of that. So how do we connect these? And what is to be gained by connecting these two clouds? That's very important. So you got to ask yourself, why do I want to connect these two clouds? Well, it's natural that any application that is built on each of the platforms would like to take advantage of and easily integrate and share data with applications that are built on the other cloud. And this boils down to the value proposition for you that as a developer, you're not limited. You can use whichever platform best meets your needs, or you can use both. And with the library that we're going to talk about today, we're going to enable you to build to connect these two clouds in a new and important way. And specifically, we're going to cover how Java applications that are running on Google App Engine can communicate and read and write Force.com objects. Sounds easy, but first we need to build the bridge. And the bridge connects these two clouds. So I've got a cute cloud picture here where I'm showing the Google App Engine on one side and the Force.com database on the other side. And we need to talk about each of the pieces in between. We need to talk about a web service client. We need to talk about the partner library, and we'll talk about the SOAP API briefly as well. So these three clouds in the middle, that's going to be the agenda for the rest of the discussion here before we move into the demos. So to outline this, let's break it down a little bit further and look at the aspects of each of these. First, the WSC. The web service client is written in Java, and Salesforce.com has open sourced this. It can be found on code.google.com as well as Force.com's developer or code share program. So the web service client is written in Java and it runs on Google App Engine, and it provides two of the key pieces. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. It also generates the partner library. And the partner library, if you're familiar with the Salesforce API, then you may have used the partner library before. It allows you to communicate with all of the objects and methods that are exposed by the Force.com SOAP API. So the SOAP API is described by the partner WSDL, and this is documented on our developer website. So we won't spend too much time talking about it, but let's at least describe the parts that we're going to use. So the SOAP API provides these basic create, read, update, and delete operations on our database. It also has special operations like login, send email, convert leads. And in addition, it has metadata operations that you may need if you wanted to create tables on the fly or fields or tabs and so on. The SOAP API is exposed by WSDL, which means that you come to the Salesforce site, you log into your developer edition, you download the WSDL, and then now you can start to use the WSDL. Well, how do we use the WSDL? Let's take a look. First, we need to understand the web service client. The web service client is this high-performance Java client for web services. We've ported this to Google App Engine. We've made it available on code.google.com, and it provides a very high-performance interface. For us specifically, for communicating with Google App Engine, we need two things. We need parsing and transport. the Web Service Client gives us parsing because it reads in the WSDL, and it generates actual Java source code. So now, when we run this, we can generate a library that we will use in our application. And when we generate that library, it has built inside of it the transport methods that are required to run inside the Google App Engine sandbox. So you can think of WSC as providing parsing and transport, and those are going to be very important.
So Ron, I should clarify here. It sounds like this is fairly open and support standards. Would this web services client work against other web services other than Salesforce?
Yeah, because it's reading a WSDL and it's generating libraries, you could pass other WSDLs to this. That's a great question, and a lot of people are excited to find out that now with this client open sourced, that they can bring their web service projects to Google App Engine as well. Now, naturally, we've added support for all of the schema types that you would find in the Force.com WSDL, but you may, if you're bringing another WSDL to the web service client and you try to parse it, you may come up with some schema types that aren't supported just yet, and you're free to add those. After all, it's an open source project. So, what does the web service client transport look like? So, in the generated source code, you get the required functions to call out from Google App Engine. So this code that you're seeing is generated inside of the partner library by the web service client, and it contains the things that are required on Google App Engine, like fetch, set payload, and get content. So because the web service client's been ported, you don't have to write this code. I just wanted to show it so you can see how we're managing to do a call out from Google App Engine to the Force.com databases. So this is just a simple glimpse at the transport layer that is included. So in order to run the web service client, you just run the Java command line shown here, and you provide the WSDL file that you download. You could use the partner library. You could probably use the enterprise library too, but I prefer to use the partner WSDL when I'm compiling. And it is not specific to Force.com, so you could try other WSDLs as well. Amazon WSDLs 1, maybe the eBay WSDLs, and so on. What you get is an output jar file. The output jar file we're going to use to link in with our Java programs. So let's take a look at that. This is a screenshot from my IDE, and you can see the two files that I've highlighted, the partner jar and the WSC jar. We need to add both of those to our project. This is the project I'll show you inside the IDE in a few minutes. The partner jar has the transport layer that we compiled, and the WSC, the WSC has all of the transport layer, and the partner jar has all of the objects and methods from the WSDL. So every custom object that you've built into your Force.com database is represented in this partner jar, and that's why you have to generate it rather than us generating it for you. Now, we do have one on the open source project site that you can download, but that doesn't have custom objects per se. So this exposes a connection object to your application. So we'll see how to use that in just a moment when we dive into the Hello World. And here we are, the Hello World program. So this shows how we use the partner connection object and a couple of functions to create a new connector config, and then finally call new connection to actually establish the connection between Google and Salesforce. After that, we can start to use ordinary Java as shown by this next segment here where we're creating a new S object. This is going to create a new account inside the Force.com database. And let's go ahead and break now and take a look at this program. So let me flip over here and put all of this together into our Hello World. We've got two demos. This is the first one. This is the easy one. Okay, as you can see, right now I'm on localhost and I'm running this and there's no connection. So let's go ahead and build the application. Now here is the application that we're going to run. So this is ordinary Java, and I'm running it inside the IDE, and I have installed here the Google App Engine development environment. So you can see these three buttons up here allow me to upload my resulting project to Google, allow me to run my project locally, or add in the GWT toolkit if I need to. So let's break this down and look at it. First, there's some imports, and the imports that we've generated are here. So these imports come from the partner library and the WSC library that we talked about. So you need those in your file. Each application that runs on App Engine is effectively responds to a URL. So we have a servlet here, and we're going to extend the HTTP servlet, and we need to respond to two things. We need to respond to a GET and a POST. So in this design, when you do a GET, we're going to put up a form. It's a simple form. It just allows us to collect a name. Very straightforward, outputting HTML. Next, I'm going to add some static, some private variables here that allow me to connect. And then when I do the post, I'm going to start to connect to Force.com. The first step is to create a connector config, set the username and password, and then call new connection. New connection actually does the login. So this will perform the login and will get back either an exception or a valid connection. Once we've got the connection, we can create a new object and pass the new object to the connection.create. And that's it. That's all we need to do to create a new account on Force.com from Java App Engine. So let's run this. And I just clicked on the green button up here, and it's reminded me to update my App Engine sandbox here to the latest. But as you can see now, I've got this running locally. The nice thing about Google App Engine is I can run and debug locally and then upload my Java binaries to App Engine and have it run across the internet. So this is a powerful feature, and it allows me to do some very, very nice debugging features. Let me now go back to the localhost browser, and I'll reload this, and we'll see the App Engine. So there's our servlet. We'll go in, and there's our Hello World. A little hard to see here. Let me blow this up. So now I'm going to create an account. Let's see. We'll create webinar hello. I'll create that account, and now it's done. So let's go ahead and jump back in. It's not fancy. Let's jump into the database and see what that looks like. Make sure that it got created, and that will be a successful demo. See, I created a new account, and there it is, webinar hello, and this has a date of 7/29. And it looks like the time zone is set to somewhere else. Okay, fantastic. Well, that's the Hello World demo. And so if you have any questions about the Hello World demo, this is an easy demo to understand. So I'll put it out on the Google Code site. But as well, you may want to see a more complex demo. And we do have a more interesting demo to show you really what it's going to what you're going to be able to do. So let's jump forward to the product catalog demo. And I'd like to introduce Ryan Marples again to conduct us through this portion of the demo because he is the one who built this demo. So take it away, Ryan.
Great. Thanks, Ron. So let me paint the scenario here before we talk too deep into the technology. We have a company here called Stratus Interiors, and they are a manufacturer of furniture. And they're a Salesforce.com customer, and they tend to manage a lot of their products, their price lists, their inventories, customer inquiries, things like that within their Salesforce organization. Now, they've hired some developers, and a lot of these developers have Java development experience. So when they talked about creating an e-commerce site for their product catalog, these developers became aware of the Google App Engine for Java platform and became aware of this new connection we have to connect those two clouds together. And they decided that they'd like to build the application using their existing skill set. They potentially even have some code they can reuse here. But what they want to do is leverage the data held within Salesforce.com because they didn't want to constantly be going back to the developers and asking them to change the database or update some record. They wanted to have it live coming right out of Salesforce. So that's what we've done here. So Ron, if you wouldn't mind bringing up the Stratus Interiors site, we'll start with just showing the homepage there. Okay. And by the way, you guys can even check this out. It's actually live, stratusinteriors.appspot.com. Just so you can see there's no smoke and mirrors. So this is the website. So far, this is actually just a plain static page, so nothing special here. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and click on the Our Catalog link on the left-hand side.
Sure. Now, is this actual page being served from Salesforce or Google?
Yeah, so this entire page, all the images, all the code that renders it is all a Google Java application.
Okay.
Entirely.
Now I'm clicking on Our Catalog, but these catalog entries are from Salesforce, right?
Right. So this page, again, it's still completely rendered in terms of the page and the code that renders it from Google App Engine. But what it's doing is it's making a web service call out to Salesforce and retrieving live a list of the product catalog, which is a list of products containing the description, an image, and some other information about it. So the great thing about this is that this page is there, the code is there. If we wanted to add a product, if we wanted to change maybe a price or a description, we could just go into Salesforce, make that change, and it would automatically update. We'll even show that later on. Let's go ahead and click on one of these, Ron. Why don't you pick out an item that you like here?
Well, I just love this green chair.
Yeah, okay, that's stylish. So we'll get.
Okay.
So we'll pull that up, and this is kind of a form where if I'm a customer or a prospect on this site, I might like to get some more information about this. So Ron, if you wouldn't mind filling in your name and some kind of email here. You can picture somebody coming in, putting an email in. We're giving them an option here to ask if they'd like to receive a product brochure, the pricing, so you can choose around which of those you're interested in.
I like it. I want to get the pricing.
Okay, great. So we'll click Request.
Click Request. Okay.
And what this is doing is the opposite what we just saw. The first thing we talked about was pulling data from Salesforce and presenting it. Here we just did the opposite. We took data from the application, in this case user input, and we wrote it back. So we're doing reads and writes from Salesforce here. So again, as opposed to having this lead information, these inquiries go into some database, which a developer has to kind of dump out or set up some kind of email system, we can actually create it directly in Salesforce. And of course, the powerful thing there is knowing that we can create it in Salesforce, that means that we can incorporate all kinds of workflow and triggers and any logic that we have defined in Salesforce. That'll all be respected. Okay, so that's the user-facing stuff. Let's go a little bit behind the scenes here. And if we can open up the webinar organization, we'll actually have a look at the actual app behind this.
Okay, I think I've got a shortcut here, and I now see two things.
Right, why don't we start with the catalog entries. So these are custom objects we've defined within Force.com, and you'll see here, I think we had 14 chairs, and you should see 14 items there if you bring up the list. There we go. Those are all the items. So if you bring one of those up, Ron, we'll just see each item in this case here has a URL. And this is an interesting point. The image, one of the questions was, well, how does the image serve? Well, the image we actually use the Force.com sites technology to make that a public image. So we're actually pulling the image directly from Force.com. There's
the image there.
Right.
I can see it's a resource on a static resource on a Force.com site.
Right. and we have the description. So why don't you go ahead and change that? Just make a change. We said it's from Italy. Maybe change that to somewhere else, and then we'll actually go back and we'll just see that this is live and make sure it's not some smoke and mirrors here.
That chair really looks like it's from France.
All right.
Okay.
So click OK, and then save that. And let's actually go back to the, if you have it open, another tab there, back to the Stratus Interiors application.
Yeah, I think it's right here. Okay.
And why don't we go to the catalog page again?
Our catalog.
And there you go. It's showing France.
There it is.
So it's actually live. Now, granted, in a real-world scenario, you may or may not want this down to the second live. You may want to incorporate some kind of caching. But the important thing here is that we know we can make an update in the database. A line of business person can make an update there. And we really don't need to touch anything else in order to make that live. Okay,
Fantastic.
Let's come back to the Force.com organization. And we'll show the other scenario. We talked about reading data. Let's show the writing data. Well, Ron was interested in this green chair, so we'll see if we bring up the list of inquiries. We should see Ron's name there.
Okay, and it looks like it is, and it was created today by an API user.
Right. So we've actually defined a user within Force.com called Stratus API, and we've defined the right permissions. That that user really only has access to read and write the kind of things that he's allowed to write. We've used that user account. We've seen we've got his name, we've got his email, we've got the pricing checked off. So we now are ready to go ahead and respond to Ron. So we've introduced the whole business workflow here.
Fantastic. It even recorded what I was interested in, the pricing. So when the company responds, they'll be able to answer my questions directly.
Right, and again, just to reiterate, there's really powerful features of using things like workflow and triggers and things. A lot of times there's different business processes. If I have a higher volume of these coming in, I could ask somebody like, well, what country are you from? And maybe if you chose, United States as opposed to Canada, maybe we automatically route this inquiry to a certain person in that geography. There's all sorts of things you can do there. Okay, if we can go back to the slides, we'll talk a little bit about how this was actually implemented. I will say just off the bat that obviously this code is available. We've actually checked this into a subfolder within the Google Code project, which you can find on the Force.com code share. We have a link to that towards the end. Just want to touch on two aspects of it. One of them was making the connection. Now, this is not entirely different from the on-premise traditional way of connecting from an application server to a database. And one of the common things you might want to do there is some kind of connection pooling or connection caching. We're doing the same thing here. If you think about it, each user does not have their own Salesforce account. The users in this case are just visitors to the website. So we don't need an account for every user. We just have this one global account, which in this case is the Stratus API user. We decided that we could, because it's the same user, we could actually cache this. What I actually did is I created a little Salesforce session manager object. And by the way, you can grab this code and reuse it. And all it is you pass the username and password, which in this case we're reading from a configuration file because we didn't want to store it directly in the code. And we're just calling to get global connection. And what it does is that will actually check to see if there's an active connection within the memcache. And if there's not, it will initiate a connection and make the login call and then store that session in there. So then on the subsequent call, we're reusing the same session. So we're not opening a million connections, and so you don't have to worry about hitting any connection maximum connection limits or using a million user licenses or anything like that. On the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about pulling the data in. So this is just a quick snippet of what it looks like to actually query the data for the catalog. So you see we're using that CONN variable. That's that connection variable. That's the main kind of key object that you're working with when you're working with Force.com from the Google App Engine. And we're calling the query method. We're passing in the SOQL query, which is the Force.com query language. In this case, we're just asking for the ID, the description, the image URL, and then we get the result back in a query result object, and we're just iterating over them. And what I did here is I created an object, or I defined a class actually called catalog entry. And this is just a simple, plain Java object with a couple properties. What I did is we actually take the record, or the S object, in other words, the raw Salesforce object. We copy a couple fields into this catalog entry object. So now we have a nice array of this nice business object that I can hand back to my JSP page, which just iterates through them and presents them in a list. So that's how that was handled. And we don't have a snippet of the code for the writing, but it's very similar. We'd basically call connection.create, and we'd pass in the object. So just a bit of a glimpse to see how that would all work. One of the things I'll point out is I think both in Ron's Hello World demo and this one, we kind of just wrote raw servlets. But of course, you can use any of the frameworks, the Google Web Toolkit or Spring or JRuby or all the kinds of frameworks that are now popping up. They're supported on the Google App Engine for Java platform. Any and all of those will work with this because really you're just running Java code. So
Fantastic.
At this point, Ron, I'm going to pass it back to you to wrap up and talk about our cloud development.
Well, thanks. That's looks like a real industrial strength commercial website that's running on App Engine and communicating with business process on Salesforce. So that opens up some exciting new possibilities. We also have a developer challenge on our website. So I wanted to remind you guys to go and check that out. And additionally, we have some next steps. We have another Tech Talk coming up in August, and we have the CodeShare project that we just talked about now. And let me just give a quick tour of a couple of those sites so you'll recognize them when you go to visit them. I've got some links up here. Here is the CodeShare project for this particular library. There's downloads that are available here, an issue tracker here, and of course the source code. And that takes you to the Google property code.google.com, and you can see the actual source here. And let's just take a quick tour through here. I wanted to show you where that example is. And Ryan, is that under the Java?
I think it was under one of the branches.
Ah, yes. Thank you. Samples. Perfect. So here is the catalog sample that you just saw, and complete source code in Java. And to run this, you would first have to go and sign up for a Google App Engine account and download their IDE, build this project, and you would use the libraries from the download page. Let me just show you what we have here on the download page. There are 3 libraries. The partner library that I created for you, this is a generic library. You may want to use your own WSDL to generate this. The WSC itself, this is the one that runs on Google App Engine, and this is the Java version that is designed for on-premise type Java installations, not Google App Engine. So you would grab the 2 here, and you can see it's been very popular. 128 people now have downloaded these libraries and started to build applications that work across both platforms. Fantastic. Okay, so that is the end of the prepared slides. So we'll jump into our questions. Okay, Sheridan, do you have read the questions here? So
I've got a couple here, Ron, if you want me to read a few out. The first one, people wanted to clarify, I think, a few questions around this. When we'd really want to use one of these Google App Engine applications that connected to Salesforce versus using the Force.com sites technology.
Okay. Well, do you want to answer that one, or should I?
Sure. Well, I can take a shot at it. I think, in general, with situations like Google App Engine, we're really trying to embrace some of the open standards. So really it's a case of if you either have existing code that you might want to migrate or perhaps existing skill sets, we want to enable those. So we want to allow you to build those applications. And of course, a lot of the stuff you've seen you could build on Force.com site. So I think it's really just a case of what you would prefer. And we'd rather just open it up as opposed to prescribe any specific technology. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Ron.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. I think that our goal is to give you more tools and to allow more developers who maybe aren't familiar with Force.com yet, more developers to come to our platform. And if they have to come by way of their Java experience and building this bridge, that's fine. I think that the end result is we'll have more applications rather than fewer. So that was one of the primary purposes for investing in this building these bridges between these clouds. And the next question that I see here is where will the demo code be located? And I think that's covered right here under developer.force.com/app-engine or developer.force.com/code-share. And we did see just where that was. Okay, and then the next question is, how is the messaging protected? So on each side of this communication, we're able to use HTTPS. So it's server to server and using SSL. Okay, the next question is, how much time did it take you to build the product catalog app from scratch? And so, Ryan, why don't you fill us in on that?
Yeah, well, we had a team of 25 people. We spent about 6 months. No, I'm just kidding. No, I did that myself. I mean, obviously I'm familiar with the technology, but I mean, that was probably a couple days effort. I mean, to be honest, most of the time was probably spent designing the site and building the actual HTML. The part that really connects the Salesforce stuff, really just the 2 pages, the product catalog page and the inquiry page. Yeah, really just, maybe 2 or 3 hours for each page. Really is not a huge amount of effort. I mean, the code snippets I showed you, that was most of the code. It was probably maybe 10 to 15 lines of code on each page there in the servlet, and really not much more than that.
Great. That does sound like a fun project. Okay, so the next question is, I assume that the API user requires a paid user license. And the answer is yes, that's correct. The API license that Ryan used was one of an ordinary license in the system.
And again, it really just depends on whether your use case is having a bunch of different users who are unique, who require some kind of authorization and personalization to it, or whether you just have the one license. In a lot of cases on a public website, you really just need the one user license to use to actually connect and read all the data.
Okay, the next question is, will I be able to see this online later? And when should I look for it? And what will it be called? So we'll publish the recording of this in a few days, and you can look for this in our Tech Talk series, and it'll probably be about a week for it to be published and up online. But you can, if you go out today to the Google website, you can see Ryan and I presenting this session at Google I/O. So just search for the session on force.com for Google App Engine in the Google I/O list of sessions.
Yeah, I think the main link there is code.google.com/IO, and that brings you a list of sessions, and you'll find ours, and there's a nice video recording of it.
Okay. So the next question is there still time to join the Developer Challenge? And the answer is we've extended the deadline to August 31st. So yes, there still is time. Build any app that you're comfortable with, and you can get more information on developer.code.com/events/cloud coding challenge. And please do check it out. And if you've built something, feel free to enroll and participate. So the next question is, The next question is, do you still need to download the SFDC WSDL and parse it and deploy it to be up to date with objects and fields? And yes, that's correct. So typically you would create all your custom objects inside Salesforce, then you would download the WSDL, and then you would parse it, and now your library that it generates would be able to use and understand all of those objects. But if you use the partner WSDL, then you have dynamic access to these objects. So that's the difference between enterprise and partner. The partner WSDL gives you more flexibility in dynamic objects, and the enterprise WSDL gives you a tighter binding to the data. Next question is, can I pull product catalog information from my database into the Force.com platform to display in some sort of application running in Force.com? Yeah, that description where the product catalog is inside Force.com and the application is in Force.com, that would represent the Force.com sites technology.
I can probably take the next one. The question on the images. Somebody was saying, is there really a better way of exposing the product image as opposed to declaring it as a static resource in Salesforce? I mean, you definitely could have the image held on the Google App Engine site. That would be the other option. That to me, it's a bit less attractive because it would mean you would have to go touch that application and redeploy the Google App Engine application every time you wanted to add a file. You'd basically be adding as a static file there. So we chose to add it as a static resource within Salesforce.com with the thought that it's probably an easier process or a simpler process, a little more tightly coupled to where the actual data lives to put it in there. I think we looked into an option of actually streaming it, so storing the image just as a document within Salesforce and not actually exposing it via sites, but just streaming that data directly through. And I think I just ran out of time, but I think that's probably another valid scenario if we had the time to build that out.
Oh, okay. The next question talks about the difference between Google App Engine and Force.com sites. So what would the difference be if we were building this whole thing in Force.com sites? And you certainly could build the whole thing in Force.com sites. The difference would be that your developers and your designers would need to know and use Visualforce and Apex code. So if you have an existing site that's written in Java, then Google App Engine is a great choice. If you have the skills and ability to build with Visualforce and Force.com sites, then Force.com sites is a great choice. So again, the differences are more important depending on the skills that you bring and the design that you want to build. So we built this to allow a wider choice for designers than developers. Our next question is, will this scale? What if I want to serve this page to 1,000 people per second? Will I run out of Salesforce connection? And so the question there refers to the number of queries that the Google App Engine will make to the Force.com database per second. And so it's possible that you could design it so that you would run out of these API calls, but a simple caching mechanism added to the Google App Engine application would eliminate that need for those type of queries, one per connection. You may pull down the catalog and cache it on Google App Engine for an hour or two, and then all the users would see the cached version. And we didn't do that because we wanted to demonstrate more closely changing the data inside Salesforce and seeing the change immediately. So you would, if you were designing a high-volume site, you would definitely want to apply some caching at various layers, both at the API layer and at the product catalog layer.
Yeah, and again, in the product catalog, we did caching at really at the login level, so we were caching the login, but of course we could have cached the data set as well, because chances are it's not a requirement to have that product catalog literally up to the second up to date. Maybe we could cache it for an hour. So there's lots of different ways you could be intelligent about that to reduce the number of connections and number of queries.
Okay, the next question is very interesting. The question is, can you talk about a Force.com sites application calling out to a Google App Engine? So this is actually reverse from what we were discussing today. We were discussing the Google App Engine querying and writing. And this question is, what would it take to, or would it be possible for Force.com to read and write from the Google App Engine? And I'd just like to say yes, that's certainly possible. What would happen is your Force.com application would use Apex code to make callouts, and the callouts would call out to a URL. The URL would be on the Google side of the cloud. The Google could generate then your Google URL, your Java program would generate either a REST or an XML response. Then the Apex code could read that response and take appropriate action. So it's certainly possible to build the bridge the other way around. That would definitely be possible. It wouldn't require the Java libraries that we introduced here today. You would instead use some XML or RSS type technology within Force.com to access that. And the next question is, can I use the WSC not Google, not App Engine compatible, in an existing deployed app outside of Google? And the answer is yes. That WSC has been built for all of our customers to use. It provides a high-performance streaming interface, which is actually, we feel it's a superior performance to some of the other web service clients out there today available in the open source community. The next question is, can this be developed using a developer account? And the answer is yes. Ryan, I believe you used Developer Edition to build your Stratus Interiors site. Is that right?
Yes, I did. Yeah, the Developer Edition is functionally equivalent to the Enterprise Edition with respect to a few licensing restrictions in terms of obviously the amount of data. But yeah, functionally you can do all the queries, all the code, all that kind of stuff just with a free developer account.
Fantastic. Well, there are a couple more questions. I'd like to take those offline and do them in our FAQ that we're going to post sometime early next week when we post this up live. So thank you very much for your time and attention for attending this Tech Talk, and be sure and attend again on August 4th for our Tech Talk on architecting commercial apps. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.